The library has been in the news a lot recently, and you might have noticed just this past week there was a story about the downtown library is moving a few blocks, and a little bit of controversy over that. Libraries aren't normally controversial at all. Just every once in a while somebody has a complaint about a book that might be in the library, and people shouldn't have that book available to them. There's a famous story of a woman who worked at the Brooklyn Library and was upset about Mark Twain and Huckleberry Finn being on the shelves, and so was wanting those books taken off. And the librarian wrote to Samuel Clemens, Mark Twain, and said that they were considering removing his books from the shelves at the Brooklyn Library. And he wrote back and said he understood clearly why you wouldn't want certain books to be available to children who are not old enough yet to understand what's going on. He said he personally, his parents made him read the Bible before he was 15. And there's a lot of violence and extramarital affairs in that book. And he did not think that children should be reading that book. And certainly, he did not want Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer on the same shelf with the Bible, because it was just simply too sexual and too violent. So if you could arrange that, he would appreciate it. It's a famous, humorous story. But when we hear today's gospel, we might think, is that something you would want to read your children before going to bed? Guess what? There will be terrible signs in the sky. The sun and the moon and the stars will shake, and nations will quiver in fear. Good night, honey. Sleep well. There are parts of the Bible we think, why are those parts in there? And so we might ask the authors, why did you put this in the Gospels? Why did you remember this? Of all the things that Jesus said for over 3 years, you remember this. Some would speculate, this is the conclusion today of this whole chapter, where he's been talking about the end of the temple and the destruction of Jerusalem and many other things about these end times. And some have said, well, it was because the gospel writers wanted to be able to show that Jesus knew the future. And so these, like Luke and Matthew and Mark, are written many, many years after Jesus lived and after the fall of Jerusalem. So the people who are hearing it would know that Jerusalem was destroyed. The temple was torn down, that the people were dispersed throughout the Roman Empire. There was great sadness and great turmoil, and just imagine if your city had been destroyed and what you had put your hopes in was gone. So Jesus knew that. But I'm not sure if that's the right reason why the gospel writers remembered it. They might have remembered it not so much for the what and the when of what the end times were going to be like, but what Jesus was saying to you and me as we experience those bad times. Because throughout that chapter, there's a message from Jesus as he talks about what's going to happen. I would imagine that all of us in the last 2 years might have felt in our own life, in the life of our culture, and the world around us that times are coming to an end. As we've had to deal with the pandemic, people might have thought, this is it. These are the end times. And all we have to do is turn on the TV or go to social media to get somebody telling us, clearly because of global warming or other things, or maybe just the TV shows you're watching, these are the end times. But all of us may have experiences throughout our life that feel like this is the end. Maybe we lost a job. Maybe we had a terrible setback in our business. Maybe we lost a spouse or a child, went through a terrible divorce, struggled with addictions. We might have felt that it was over, that the world as we knew it had come to an end. And Jesus reminds us through his own life, and we're reminded of it every time we gather for Eucharist, that God takes every loss and every failure and turns it into something alive and brilliant. Because that's what the Easter message is over and over and over again, that the death on the cross was the moment of glory, that our losses are transformed by God into something more, that they are not the end. And the gospel reminds us that all those little losses we have are clearly not the end times. And COVID or global warming or any of those things are not the end times. If you listen carefully to today's gospel, you have to see the sun and the moon and the stars doing stuff, not just stuff here on earth. Jesus is very clear. When the end comes, you'll know it. Nobody's going to be like, maybe this is... No, there's no more sun. Oh, I guess there's no more sun. It's over. Jesus is coming now. But you and I, in the midst of all the struggles of this life, in the many losses that come our way, in the many challenges, are told by Jesus in the gospel in that chapter 21 of Luke over and over and over again. First of all, you are not to be afraid. Never give in to fear. Fear is the problem, not the events happening around you. Because fear will make you put your trust in other things. And the only one we put our trust in is Jesus. The only one. Not in political parties, not in ideas, not in technology, only in Jesus. Our trust is there. And when everything is falling apart around us, Jesus says in the gospel today, stand erect with your heads held high. For you know who your Savior is. And you can be somebody that the rest of the world needs and say, wow, look at them. They are not afraid, for they know their Redeemer is near.